There we go. I don't know if you guys can record for yourselves and just ask me for permission. Anyways,
I don't know. You're the host, so you have a capacity to record.
yeah, okay. So I'll download those through the day then. Anyway, so these scriptures, they talk about the city of eight, because what most scriptures are getting at is like, well, who am I? Who are you? Who is this being here? And so then they basically say, well, you're not just one being, you're multiple beings in one body. You're multiple energies in one body. And they talk about these in different ways, like Shaktis, for example, or even chakras. In a way, a chakra is it's a wheel of energy, really. And so in a way, we're this wheel of energy made up of wheels of energies. And so it's like we have this dominant chakra who's like, it's who you are. And within that, you've got these minor chakras that we talk about. Again, we can connect all of those chakras to the elements, the earth chakra that's kind of connecting us to everything around us, and the fire chakra that's helping to lift us up and rise us and bring some fire into the system. And like that. And so the tattva are the tattvas are the elements. And so now what they've done is we'll start with the 25 elements, because it's really the first 25 of Sankhya philosophy, and that's the foundation for every science and philosophy in India, basically. I'm just going to screen share this so that we're kind of looking on the same page. Same page here. And so there we go. Let's just scroll. I'm going to scroll right down to the 25 where they start at the Atma Tattvas. Right? And so these are the Tattvas. This is observable reality, you could say. And now reality, as far as this goes into, like, we have a mental reality, a mind, an intellect, a soul, a body. And so all of this is, you can say all of reality is kind of within these first 25 tattvas. Everything we see. Oh, Andrian made it. There we go. And so we get these 25 tattvas. It's all of observable reality. And now Kevalaya, this is basically what the Yoga Sutras, they're referencing Sankhya philosophy all the time in Yoga Sutras. And so this is essentially a dualistic philosophy. There's a soul and there's a body. There's a Purusha, who's like an agent, who is like the center, the operator of the chakras, the operator of all the powers, you could say, the operator of the Shaktis. And that's kind of like the Purusha. And we'll talk about that on the different sort of dimensions or levels of reality. But here, this is the inside. If you say, I am sick or I am happy, the Purusha is kind of that much higher I. And now, what is sick or what is happy? That's kind of like your prakriti. That's your nature, your body. And so what they were concerned with in yoga philosophy, now when I say yoga philosophy, I'm referencing Patanjali yoga philosophy. So what they're referencing in yoga philosophy is Kevalaya, is kind of this enlightenment where you essentially know the difference between what is your nature that you were born with and what do you acquire from outside of yourself, from nature. And this is important because, well, you can't change what you're born with, but you can do something about your nature. You can kind of change the influences, and you can work with nature to change, to grow, to be better, to broaden your mind, to whatever, improve yourself, help your clients, help yourself. All the wellness stuff is because nature does have an effect, and we can work with that. And there is some, I'm going to talk more about this later, but there's some free will when we work with nature. And so that's Prakriti. And so we really want to get to know Prakriti. So a lot of this course is about getting to know Prakriti. And like a lot of scriptures say, we get to know Shiva through Shakti. Because Shiva's this, well, I hate to say this out loud, but Shiva's not real. Shiva's a concept. And it's a concept that's well, it's beyond reality. And so we can't, like, what is Shiva? We can't even really talk about that. I don't know. We will talk about it, and we do, but we'll hopefully get closer to Shiva through Shakti. And so then we're going to deal with the Prakriti, and then we get these kind of lower levels of Prakriti, where Prakriti starts to, first there was one, then there was two, and then there was three, and then there was the, well, five, and then the multitude. And so Prakriti starts to break herself apart in a sense. And so then they become not separate from Prakriti, but all these different faces of nature, of Prakriti. And so we get this Mahat, this Buddhi, this intelligence. And now there's different ways that they, like when you look at these 25 tattvas, if you go online and look for them, you're going to get so many different breakdowns. They're going to use slightly different words or phrases. And so anyways, all of these next few sections, the Buddhi, the manas, the ego, they're all part of what they call the antarkarana, the inner instrument. And these aren't actually things, they're functions. And again, that's why we're able to work with them, because they're not these solid elements. They're these, again, they're a little bit separate from reality. They're not, again, they're not real. They're not things. The Mahat, the ego, these sorts of things. And that's where, well, in a sense, this is sort of the lower physical level where we're able to make magic happen. We'll look later at the upper levels where the real magic sort of happens, but we can kind of work with that here. Now, intelligence is interesting. It's connected with the sun. It's connected with the pranas. It's connected with our source of power as well. And so I've included some information on the different pranas, some of the 5 pranas in here. And now the pranas, these get dealt with a little bit differently in Ayurveda than they do in tantric philosophy, but that's mostly okay. Now the pranas, as far as I can tell, they talk about them as ways that energy moves. Now we'll go into them a little bit more later on, but in a sense, when we talk about the way energy moves, this is kind of the way time moves. And so time and space are these separate things. And so time is trying to kind of live forever, same as energy. It doesn't want to die. It doesn't want to stay on this linear course where it's born, this energy comes into being, and then it ends. Right? Energy wants to live forever. So it starts to move in these different ways in order to preserve itself. And a lot of what we're going to do in this class is try to connect to those different ways that energy moves and see how energy kind of preserves itself and regenerates itself and heals itself, essentially. And a lot of that is through the level of the intelligence. If anybody has any questions ever along the way, just kind of wave your hand. I can still see you guys all in the corner there. So, and I'm glad you put your cameras on, because then I get to talk to people. So then we come down to this level of the ahamkara, the ego, the sense of I-ness. Now, this is a very tricky thing, because on one hand, we're learning that you need to have a very strong sense of I, a very strong sense of who you are. And in a way, that's a lot of what we're going to teach, is to discover that sense of who you are and become sort of seated in the self. That's kind of one of our goals in yoga. Now, on the other hand, the ego gets talked about as this very bad thing. And you have to overcome the ego, and you have to sort of shed that ego. Now, again, this is an area where I find astrology is very good for understanding the different egos. Because when we talk about, and I think that when we're talking about this ahamkara, what we're talking about there is the sun. It is that sense of I-ness. In a sense, we want to be seated in the self in order to connect more deeply, in order to raise our consciousness beyond the self, in a sense. It's the way, it's this kind of linchpin between the mind and the lower mind, you could say, and the higher sense of intelligence. And now the other sense of ego that we have, we get to know from astrology, and we'll go in much later on, but this is the Rahu ego. This is that false, cloudy sort of ego that is, well, it's covering up the true self, actually. And this connects with Maya, and so again, there's different ways that we kind of look at Maya as well as the ego. There's this sort of bad sense of Maya, and there's a sense of, well, Maya Devi, who we can very much work with in life and stop struggling against, at least, in order to, again, penetrate beyond the Maya and connect more deeply with the Shiva. And so we get this ahamkara, and so actually it's a sense of self, I think, that we really want to become seated in, but not attached to. And then we get the mind. And again, by this is mostly, in a sense, this is that middle level, that Shaktapaya. Again, we'll talk about that later. As a means, is we use the minds as one of the main instruments, one of the main functions of being human that we're going to use for self-improvement and to rise and connect with all the other layers. And so the mind, of course, is attached with the moon. And so the mind is very changing. It becomes very habitual. The mind is the first sort of area where we really get into the cycles. It's kind of this gathering place. When we think of the moon, we think of its really watery nature, but another nature of the moon and the mind is to kind of have some boundaries and to have a space that's kind of Andrea just put her camera on. And to have a space that's a safe space, it's a comfortable, it's a protected space, but it also works as this kind of gathering place, like the kitchen, right? Everybody sort of gathers in the kitchen. And what gathers in the mind is all the impressions that we get from the world around us. And the world, that connection to the world around us, we see here with all the indriyas, the 10 indriyas, the 10 mantras and the bhutis, the elements themselves. And so it's all these impressions from all of these, what are we at? I keep trying to change the numbers and it automatically switches them the other way on me. I mean, always the numbers. This goes to 36 to the earth, but it should be numbered 1 from the earth and going up the other way. But that's okay because it kind of goes both ways, you could say. And that's really what's happening with these tattvas is, so we have these 25 tattva, and above that we have these other tattvas. And so I'm just going to say for now, people who follow some theology, people who believe in God, then they would add basically 1 or 2 or sometimes 3 tattvas on top of Purusha and Prakriti. And so you get 26 or 28 tattvas. And so they say, well, all of this comes, you get God. And so from that spiritual energy, basically, the spiritual energy comes down and it empowers the Purusha, the individual soul. And that individual soul is kind of sitting in the middle of these chakras, he's sitting in the middle of these shaktis, these arrangements of energies. And that energy comes in and it's like this magic like you see on TV, and boom, it energizes all those shaktis that are around it. Because now there's an agent. Now it's like if you have a stick, and you can do a lot of different things with a stick, but the stick is useless unless someone comes along and does something with it. And so now all of a sudden you've got this agent who's able to kind of, well, it's that spirit that gives power to the body. It gives power to our senses, and it gives power to our abilities. And in a sense, that's who you are, is that agent that's powering your body. And then in another sense, like you and your body is another agent that can empower the world around you. You can empower the stick. You can empower the student. And so that's really like, when we're doing energy work, it's you're the source of energy. You're the source of power. So in a sense, it's like, well, I don't know, what do I want to do with a stick? I want to hold a tent up with a stick, say. But actually, I don't need the stick. I can find a million ways to hold that tent up, hold that tarp up or whatever. Right? And so you're the agent of that power. And so you can put that power out however you like. But of course, first you have to be empowered person. And so in a way, if we think of like who is a healer, who is a who can do energy work, well, it's someone who's empowered. It's kind of a rough definition. And then what you do, what technique you use from there to empower others doesn't really matter so much. As long as you empower that technique, as long as you empower that method, as long as the time and the place is right as well. And so then a lot of it becomes about timing, and we'll talk about that later on as well. That sense of timing of, sometimes it's good, like the Zen masters do. They hit their students with the stick. There, now you're enlightened. But they don't just like go around and hit anyone with the stick at any time. There's a right time and there's a right place to hit that guy with a stick, and they're going to get it. And so in a sense, again, we'll talk about this later, we use our anger that way, right? We kind of hit someone with our words, or we hit someone with our energy somehow. And well, hopefully as teachers and healers, we do that at the time and place where the student is going to get a lesson, right? There's at least some parents here, and it's necessary to get angry at your children sometimes. And so there's a right time and a place for that as well, where they're going to get it. They're going to learn something from it. If you go beyond that, you go out of place or something, well, the message can get lost very quickly. And so with our students as well, it's the right time to show love and care, and just try to kind of agree with what their people are saying. And there's another time to say no, right? And so yes and no, and these balances is a lot of what we're going to kind of look into. And so we'll come back down to these Karmindiyas and these Janindriyas and all of this sort of stuff. So the Janindriyas, Jan means it's knowledge. And so these are the instruments that are able to acquire knowledge from the world around them, right? We have our ears and our skin, our sense of touch, and our eyes can see it, and like this. And so in a sense, we can say all 25 of these tattvas, or say 24, if we're saying the Purusha is the operator, all the other 24 are instruments to be operated. We make the mistake of thinking like we're very passive in all of this, that we just sit here and sound from outside comes in, and whatever, the air just touches our skin, or something comes and touches us and we feel it, and we look around and we just see what's around us. And so we think we're these passive agents, and these things are just kind of, all the sense stuff is just pouring into us. But actually we're active agents. We look out in the world and we see what we want to see. We hear what we want to hear, right? We feel what we want to feel. And it's funny. It's like I give this class and I sit here and I talk to you for 2 hours about all of this stuff, and Dana will send me a message after, and she'll ask me something, and I'll say, oh, well, I said that then, and she'll be, oh, I completely missed that. And somebody else will send me something and talking just about that thing, and I'll say, oh, that thing that Dana talked about, like, oh, I completely missed that. Right? And so there's certain things that we kind of have inside of ourselves, and we're pre-wired to connect to those things outside of ourselves. So it's like when someone gets mad or they're having a bad day, they find things everywhere to make them mad. Everything just makes, why is the whole world making me mad today? And it's because you're connected. Like astrologically, I might say, well, you have a lot of Mars going on today, and well, you're going to be a little bit hot. You're going to be a little bit testy. Otherwise, a week later, you've got a whole bunch of Venus, and so now you're making peace with everybody around you. And that's because you have that inside of yourself, and so we're projecting those energies out. We're looking for things to confirm who we are. And if who we are is, well, I'm mad or I'm happy, right? We're gonna find things in the world to confirm that I'm mad or I'm happy, and because now we've identified with our anger. And that's really a big part of all of this is, who are you? Who do you identify as? And so we do. When we're angry, we are fully identified with our anger. When we're really happy, we're fully identified with that. If we're just a little bit mad or a little bit angry, well, we're just a little bit identified with that. We've got some other identity things going on. And this is because we're made up of so many different little identities. We talk about it as well, the 5 identities of the elements, or the 25 identities of the tattva, or the 36 identities. And so as spiritual beings, we want to identify more and more as tantrics. I am all of this. And that's a significant difference between Tantra philosophy and, say, Vedanta philosophy, or a lot of the more orthodox philosophies. They're saying, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not a mother, I'm not a sister, I'm not, I'm not my earth, I'm not my things, I'm not my job. And the orthodox people are saying, I'm not all of these things, until they get down to this, well, as the Buddhists say, until I am nothing. And there's nothing wrong with that, because both of these things kind of get us to the same place, right? It's like, if we think of an infinite, well, the infinite to nothing and the infinite to everything become indistinguishable. But as tantrics, we're usually saying, I am this, I am a sister, I am a brother, I am a mother, I am a friend, I am my anger, I am my happiness, I am all of these things. I am God and I am the devil. And that's what shadow work kind of is, because as limited beings, it's very difficult for us to identify with all of those things at the same time. And so what we kind of do, right here and now, I am a devil, right? I just did something, whatever, right? And you are the devil, right? Like there's no indistinguishing feature at that time and place and moment and how you're feeling inside. And so when a lot of shadow work is, it kind of explores that. I think it was, I'll probably get this wrong, but I think all of you might follow Jordan Peterson a little bit. And one of the early things he really talked about was the Nazi Holocaust, in the sort of sense that, well, actually, if you were living in Nazi Germany at that time, you would probably just follow orders like everybody else did, because, well, that's what like 80% of people did. And so we kind of have we have all of these sides inside of ourselves. We have these potentials for to do huge, amazing, wonderful, creative, original things. And we have this capacity within us to do these horrible, atrocity, terrible things. And it's not that we're 50-50. It's you're 100% and you're 100%. And that's what kind of makes a lot of this philosophy so difficult, and a lot of the Shiva Shakti philosophy, because while you are 100% Shakti, nature, a creature of nature, but you are also 100% Shiva, just pure spirit. And because none of these energies are diluted when they come into limited form, it's that their expression is diluted. Because, well, there's a time and a place, and so they can only express themselves in one way. And so those energies are to their full capacity. So anyway, so we get these Janindras as ways of acquiring knowledge from the world around us. And we get these karmendriyas, and the karmendriyas are ways of acting and interacting with the world around us. And so we have this mouth that, right, it allows us to speak and it allows us to eat. And this mostly we'll talk about it as a speaking instrument in this regard. And these hands that are able to reach out and touch something, and the feet that can move us around. And it's interesting, you know, we can see, I put these in these lines, right? These like 1722, Jupiter, sound, space, and all of those things are connected, of course. And so you find some of these connections a little bit interesting, and Mars is this way. It's like the feet are connected to the eyes and the vision. And this is very strange, but this is something acupuncturists also use, right? If someone's having eye problems, they're putting needles in the feet. Because what our vision allows us to do, and Mars is quite connected with the circadian rhythms as well, is interesting, because the Mars and our vision allows us to perceive the change in, like, to perceive space. And so what the perception of space is, oh, that object's close and that object's far away. And so it's actually our vision that allows us to move. And so those things are actually very connected, our ability to move in the world. And so then you get all this stuff about hand-eye coordination and all of these sorts of things. But it's really, I've always found it quite interesting how our sense of vision is so connected with our feet, but our feet is that representation of the movement in the world. So you got some of these kind of more, you know, some seem quite the ears and the mouth for speaking, and sound, of course, moving through space, and all of that makes a lot of sense. Jupiter and the mantra, this also connects us with mantra, as we'll see later on. And people doing sort of sound healing. And I think a few of you are into sort of sound healing sort of in different ways as well. And so that's a lot of Jupiter. That's that movement of energy kind of in all directions. We get some controversy here now as well, especially between Western systems and the Vedic systems. You'll see I listed Saturn representing skin and air and that sense of touch. It has a lot to do with the nervous system, Saturn. But a lot of Western esoteric people, I guess, they would say Saturn represents the earth element and Mercury represents the air element. And they would connect the air element more with the element of speech. But here we find speech still kind of connected with ether, but it's connected with Jupiter rather than Mercury. So you get there's small differences, but they become important kind of later on. Now, so then we get the Saturn in the sense of touch, and the sense of touch is very interesting. So this course is a tantric philosophy course. And of course, as we all know, mostly in the Western world, if we say tantra, everyone kind of giggles to the side, and we're talking about sex. And there's certain reasons why it gets interpreted this way. And one of the reasons is because a lot of tantric scripture really highlighted the sense of touch. And if we bring that down into what we know about the sense of touch in tantra, a lot of what we're working with is the nervous system. We're working with that kind of inner electrical system. And there weren't so much talking about and it's like a lot of philosophy. It gets interpreted as an external thing when really what they're talking about is its internal sense of touch. In a sense, it's this like be connected to your nervous system. And so you feel everything. And in a way, it's like this also gets, I think, sometimes misinterpreted in modern tantras because they bring this to the moon, the emotional sense of like feel everything. And that's kind of good. But if you're feeling everything on the emotional level, it's going to be very turbulent. But you want to feel everything on the Saturn level. So you feel everything, but you're not really affected by it. Right. And so that's that sense of touch where you can just, it's that inner feeling, that inner connection to the movement of electricity in your body. Right. And of course, now once we get to talking electricity, you can understand it on that tantric level because it's all energy, it's Shakti, right? This power. And so anyways, the way to connect to that is through that sense of touch, through the nervous system. And so then we get this sense, and of course, we'll go through all of this much more later on in the course as we kind of move through it. And then we get Mars. And again, I talked a little bit about that connection, but he's connected to that sense of movement. And not just any kind of movement, like that movement upwards. It's like that looking upwards, right? That empowerment. Whereas like you see someone and they're looking down all the time, and that's not really they're not seeing anything. And so with the Mars, we're kind of opening, we're becoming we're becoming more aware of more, I guess, and we're challenging ourselves. And so that's all. Oh,
Yeah, I was just thinking about the when you were saying that Mars, looking like that is you're being aware of things. Maybe because like when I see people like that in ceremonies, it's because they're looking inwards, right?
there is a sense. Yeah, there is a sense of this. Um, that's more, actually, that's more Saturn.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
that's when we go inwards to feel that sense of touch. And even in astrology, Saturn does look downwards.
Mm-hmm.
There's also, of course, all of these things get associated in different ways. There's also that sense of shame
Right.
attached with looking downwards, and not, maybe it's more like people who are more unwilling to look upwards, you could say,
Right.
right? Um, there's also a sense of duty within that downward look, right? The laborer is just looking down at his work. He's not seeing anything, any of the world around them.
Yeah, it's very shadowy, like looking into the darkness, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Just thought what he's kind of doing there. And so again, that's a big part of what we're going to be working with all the way through this, is to see how each of these things might be interpreted on different levels, right? Again, good you bring this up. It's that sense of looking downwards. We often do think of it as shame, but it can be looking inwards. It can be a different kind of focus, right? There's nothing else. There's just, in a sense, this middle path.
Yeah.
So like that. But when we come to the
Yeah.
Mars and that sense
Not
of,
about the work, like
yeah, when we come to Mars and that sense of vision and that sense of sight there, and being connected, like the Janindriya, the eyes, so looking out and being able to see the world around us, but he's also connected to the feet. And so it's not just seeing what's here and now, it's going and seeing more and bringing more of that, more vision in and broadening the vision. Again, connected to that fire energy in Mars. When we get to Venus, the tongue is an interesting thing. There's some connection as well, of course, to Moon here with the tongue and the sense of taste. But That's really what Venus is that sense of taste. What kind of art do you like? What flavors of life do you appreciate? And what we're going to kind of do later on with Venus is open that up into kind of looking at every area of life. Like, what flavor of food do you like? What flavor of fun do you like? What flavor of sleep, of comfort do you like? What flavor do you need around in order to let go? And you can kind of see the whole world through the life of flavors. Venus is also important because, and so when we talk about tantra as well, kind of try to connect tantra to all of these senses. Venus is that, like Abhinavagupta, we call him the Adi Guru of Kashmiri Shaivism. He's the one who kind of compiled all the tantras and brought it into one systematic philosophy. Not just all the tantras, he brought all the Vedic philosophies and Vedanta, and he brought it all into this kind of oneness. But what he was mostly known for before, I guess in modern times, more than his tantra, was his theory of aesthetics. His writings about theater. And so that's where Venus takes us into, is the taste and the beauty and setting the stage, right? If what we're working with is all this stuff like timing and time and place and all of these sorts of things, then Venus is the one who manipulates the place, puts up some nice stuff and makes things pretty and makes the space around them kind of possess the other. And that's really like our tongue and our sense of taste and our all of this art and beauty and love. That's really one of the main things Venus is known for, is possessing. And we often think of this as like possessions as in things we own, but of course we all know those things also own you. But then what Venus does, like Mohini of the mythology, this beautiful woman comes in and kind of possesses everybody. Nobody knows anything. But we do that with beauty anyways. We impress people a little bit. We kind of possess them. It's like, oh, now I got ya, right? So that's that kind of power of Venus. And Venus also reproduces really with our reproduction system. And that's really, again, Venus is the one who brings us into the cycles. He's the guru of the magic. He's the guru of the circular moving energy. So really, it's Venus is our guru. Our sense of taste, in a sense, is your guru. And what's going to happen is, because you have and I think all three of you, and me included, all four of us, have a very different sense of taste. And we're also going to have a very different sense of style in how we teach. And that style of how we teach is going to get us all very different clients, and very different people will come and visit us. And like the people that visit you will listen to me and go, oh, I don't know that guy. They'll listen to the other and they'll, oh, wow, I don't know, like that. Because we all have, and so a lot of what we're connecting through is actually through that sense of taste and through that sense of style. I hate to say it. But Venus is the one who's kind of teaching us, well, image is everything. And I remember one time getting a very heated argument with this guy. It was like this anarchist land in Canada. And he was completely like, he got a hold of this like bottle of acid, and he did all of this and he completely fried himself. That was before Andrian lived on this land. And so I was in the kitchen. I was always arguing with this guy because he was living on a different planet. And he's going, image is everything, man. And I'm like, image is nothing. It's what you have inside that counts. And we were in this argument, and it was very heated. And I went back later, anyways, you calm down and it's like, okay, he's right, image is everything. But I'm also right. It's what's inside is everything. And so it's like we're both kind of right. But he was high on acid, so his opinion didn't matter. um, um, and he was actually, this man was the first time I saw the very real and very quick effects of doing too much acid on the system. If any of you are dabbling in this stuff, he was a very nice, normal guy before that. And then I saw him the next 3 months. He was completely, his mother came and took him away and he had to go to a hospital and he just never came back. I hope he did by now, but anyway, so Venus is the guru that teaches us image is everything. And Jupiter is kind of the guru that teaches us, well, it's what's inside that counts. And so a lot of what we're going to be doing here as well is these tattvas are arranged in quite a specific order, from Earth to Purusha. And so what they're doing is they're getting more and more and more subtle as they go, in a sense. And so that's in a way this sense of going more from Venus is the guru of the Earth. And the image where image is everything, and Jupiter is the guru of the spirit, where it's like what's inside that matters. And so Jupiter is teaching us to rise and become connected to the more subtle spheres of everything, and where image isn't really what matters, but it's like, well, it's like that first impression. First impression is everything. It doesn't matter sometimes what you have inside. It's that first impression. And as healers, that is quite true. The first impression is going to be very, very important. And the first impression doesn't just start, we'll talk about these things later on, but the first impression doesn't just start when they come and sort of say hello to you. It's where the first time they sort of hear about you. That's their first impression. And then they come and meet you. Now there's a second impression, quite a strong one, but really the first one, it's like if someone says, oh, Dana's amazing, you have to, she knows all this and she's the smartest person in the world and she's wonderful and great and you have to meet her. Well, after that, she doesn't have to do anything. Right? By the time the second impression comes, she could let out a fart and they'll go, oh, she's wonderful. Right? So that first impression is really important. And so this is something we think about and how we're reaching out to people and how we're doing our marketing, essentially, how people are going to find us. And so that really starts with Venus, right? And well, Venus wants you to look pretty and look nice and right, follow some nice stuff. And what happens then, Venus also, you'll reproduce, you'll get a student, right? You'll get someone, you'll say something and someone else will say that again and they'll say that again. And anyways, Venus eventually will, you connect it with the sun and you'll have your own style going on. But we'll move on now. Well, only about a hour, we got lots of time. But we'll come back around. And so then we come to Mercury, and here's where we get a little bit, Mercury gets a little bit of a confusion with Saturn because we connect Mercury with the Earth. And I think the reason the Vedic people connected Mercury with the Earth is because he's the most dual planet. And the Earth element in the sphere of the Earth is the most dual. And that's that's where Venus is teaching, right? That duality. And the sphere of duality, Venus is the big guru. And that's really, well, again, where Tantra gets some confusion and gets brought into the sort of sexual sphere is because Tantra is all about relationships. And really a lot of what we're going to be talking about in the class is about relationships. But it's not just relationships between you and a partner, you and a husband, you and a whatever. It's relationships, you between everything. Right? It's the relationships of, well, that big relationship is like me versus the world. Me as a being in the universe separated from the universe. And Well, this is a big problem because this is generally how we feel, and this is generally what we're working with, and Venus wants to kind of teach you to work with that better, and and get better relationships, that one standard big relationship, how you relate with the universe. But then there's all the other smaller relationships. It's like, well, how do I Mercury connection? How do I relate to my students? How do I relate to, see, that's an imbalance with Mercury, because Mercury's always a teacher or a student. Someone's higher or someone's lower. And in a sense, that's often how the world works. We go out in the world and it's like, I don't know, I want to buy some vegetables. Well, I have a bunch of money in my pocket. That gives me some power. And so I go down the street to this little vegetable seller here, and I flex my power and I say, I want to buy these vegetables because I have money. And then they have power too because they've got vegetables. And so they flex their vegetables and they or their power, and they say, yeah, so I'll give you some vegetables, but I want this much money. And and so we kind of share this. I've got a bit of power and they've got a bit of power, and we exchange energy. And normally, in most situations, we both come off and we feel pretty good about that. I walk away from the vegetable stand and I'm not thinking, oh, I owe that vegetable seller something, because that's what karma is. And and I just walk away. I don't even think of the vegetable seller till I need vegetables again. But if maybe I flexed my money and then I pulled out my wallet and I was a couple bucks short. and and the vegetable sellers say, now they got the power. They're usually pretty nice and they say, okay, just take the vegetables, but bring me the money next time you come by. Okay. But now I've made a bit of karma with this vegetable seller, and I'm walking away and I'm thinking, oh, jeepers, now I owe this money. I have to get this money to this person. And in a sense, it's a very small karma, but it pushes me. And if I don't pay the next day, then it pushes me a little bit harder. It grinds me a little bit. And so that little karma can get bigger if I ignore it. And a lot of our little karmas are this way. They start out, it's nothing. I just owe her a couple bucks. But after a week, I still haven't paid her. Now I'm ashamed. I'm going around and I'm finding a different way to go to town because I don't want to pass this vegetable seller because I don't have their money, or whatever it is. So this is kind of how karma works as well. It's usually starts off as this very little thing, and if you just clean it up right away, it's nothing. But if we don't clean up those karmas, it becomes something. Now, I think everybody here, like, we're pretty balanced people. I've talked to all of you, and we got a good mind on us, and whatever, we're doing all right. And so sometimes we have students coming to us, right? We have people coming to us now, and they're saying, like, help me. I'm having problems. And a lot of their problems are karmic problems. They've got some karmas somehow in them, and they haven't quite dealt with them. And so that's, in a way, that's what we're doing. Two things, I think. I think for most of us, we're working both fields. So I distinguish between counseling and coaching. Counseling, I tend to think, is something we're dealing with these people who have difficult karmas, and they're dealing with their past, and things from their past are holding them back, and we want to try to help them sort out all this garbage that's holding them back. And that's the end of I tend to think of counseling as more dealing with that past. And so we want to try to help them deal with their karmas. And so we want to understand the karmas they're dealing with. So again, a lot of this class will be to try to understand very specifically what those karmas are in order to deal with them. Now, there's different ways we can deal with the karmas. If you deal with it quick, if I give the lady her money, then it's done, right? If I wrong someone, sometimes I can go and I can say, I'm very sorry, Dana, I missed the class, and please forgive me, and it was a mistake, and she's going to forgive me. She's a nice, I think maybe we've done it before. I don't know where I've been, anyway, but It's a small thing. And so some of these karmas we can deal with fairly easily. Now, other karmas we can't. Dana's not around anymore. What I've done is too big and I can't show my face to her anymore. It's just a bad thing. And so it's can't, or I say sorry and she's like, no, sorry, ain't gonna cut it, or whatever. These are problems now. And so you got this inside. You don't feel good. You're like, what can I do to make things right? And now a lot of people, they kind of have quite a few of these little things. And so that's kind of what the yoga sort of path is about. Like there's a lot of different ways we can deal with this. Like I'm around a bunch of Christians here. If I go to confession, the priest is going to say, okay, well, do a couple hundred Hail Mary, fill of grace, and you'll be okay. And in the Hindu system, we can say, okay, do so much of this mantra, you'll be fine. It's not a big deal. Sometimes the mantra is not enough. Sometimes what you did, or just like, I think for a lot of people, by the time they come to the spiritual path, they've just accumulated all these kind of icky karmas, vague stuff. They just don't feel as good about themselves as they could, or they want to, or like this. And sometimes a bit of mantra is not enough. So it's like, okay, well, you have to maybe you have to do something. And so you have to give some service. Maybe you should go and work with these kind of people. And sometimes you can see this from the astrology chart, but you can see this in people generally. And so say someone is really, their finances aren't good. They just can't seem to get a grasp of financial debt. And this is really plaguing them. So then you might say, okay, well, there's this nonprofit organization. They help people with financial debt. Go and volunteer there. Go and help them. Or maybe go and feed some homeless people. They have bigger financial problems than you. You'll learn something. And so you go out and we find these energies that kind of are somehow matching the karmic energies that's holding them back. And you say, go and spend some time in that situation and see people who are worse off than you, basically. And somehow they're dealing with the same problem you are, but at a deeper level somehow. And so, wow, going to volunteer in a homeless shelter for a year, for example, has a different flavor and a different power than just doing mantra. But both are going to help. Both will connect you. Now I was going to recommend a mantra that I think some of you are already following mantra and maybe already have your personal mantras. If you do, that's okay. Just keep following your personal mantra. Otherwise, I was going to recommend just a very basic mantra. There's certain mantras they call Maha mantras, and they're kind of good for anyone at any time, at any place. I think did I send some of those in here?
Mike, I have to get going.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw you logged in at 8, so
Yes, I miscalculated the timing. And so next time I would definitely be able to kind of get my schedule around properly. So, but I look forward to the recording.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks for
Thank you.
coming. Mahadev.
Yes.
So I listed a few Maha mantras. And so these are some of the more popular. These are sort of mantras that anybody can do anytime, and they're good. And sometimes it can be nice, if you're just starting out on mantra, it can be nice to just start with one of these mantras. Now, of course, Om, I'm sure all of you have probably both of you probably, it's funny, it goes from 3 to 2 and it goes from all to both. So, so you guys have probably chanted some of these before, I think, probably Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Narayanaya. It's interesting. Om Namah Shivaya. Shiva is an interesting one because Shiva's, and really, when I think of the tantra that I teach, I never know what to call it. And because it's like, well, Kashmiri Shaivism, well, it's kind of Kashmiri Shaivism, but it's kind of this Varanasi Shaivism Tantra. So actually, Shiva Tantra is probably the best thing for me to call it. So Shiva Tantra. So we're dealing with Shiva. Shiva is he's the god of the ghosts and the goblins. He's the god of all the energies. And so when a lot of times we're dealing with people who are having problems in their mind. And that's where the ghosts and the goblins live. They all live in the mind. They all live on the higher spheres, and well, they come down and they visit us. And a lot of times we don't like it because they're ghosts and the goblins and they're scary. And so these are our fears and our guilts, and Shiva's the god of all of this. And so Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. This helps to assuage the fears, kind of calm the fears. Now, a little bit down, I've got the Mrityunjaya mantra. I never know what to call this. It goes by many names. The Triambakam mantra, Bhairava mantra, sometimes they call it. Rudra mantra. But Om Triambakam, this is the general mantra they use for overcoming all fears. And well, that's a huge part of any sort of spiritual practice. So we're trying to overcome those fears because those fears are shadows. It's like wherever there's a fear, there's something lurking in the shadow there. There's something we're not fully looking at. And so if we're going to do shadow practice or shadow work ourselves or working with people in shadow work, we want to work with we want to make them more brave. Like, no problem, Shiva's with you. You can look into that shadow. Now, it's also very interestingly enough, so part of the myth of this Mrityunjaya, or part of Shiva's myth, was this myth of Brahma when he wanted to populate the world. And he thought, oh, I want to make a world. He's the creator god. So he's like, I want to make the world. But he looked around, there was only his own mind-born children around him. And there's his daughter. You know, most of them were boys, but he had this daughter, and she was very beautiful. And he thought, oh, well, I want to populate the world. I need a woman. And I said, oh, look at her. She's beautiful. And she's like, he's looking at me. And so then she goes over there. And he sprouts another head over here. And she's like, well, he's looking at me. And she goes over there. And well, we can connect this somehow to the energy, the feminine energy, and the Venus as well, because it's always kind of changing. It's a time and place is moving all the time and shifting. And that's kind of what we're working with the Maya. Venus is the guru of Maya and the magic. So now she's over there and she's over there, and he keeps sprouting this head. And then she decides she wants to go up to heaven to get away from the gaze, kind of harsh gaze of the creator. And the whole time Shiva's been watching this in the form of Rudra, the hunter. He's out there in the forest, and here she is. She turns into a deer and she's running away, and Shiva sees from the outside. Again, it's how we mostly see. We see from the outside, and we think, oh, this dirty old man. He just keeps watching his daughter everywhere he goes, and that's not right. And so he takes the bow and he shoots him. Different story. Sometimes he chops off the head, but he shoots him. So Shiva is sometimes, they give this mantra for women who are having trouble with men. Right? You know, I feel, oh, the men are always looking at me. Oh, the dirty men. Oh, these guys. Maybe she's had bigger problems that makes her feel this way, of course, right? And so Triambakam mantra is often given to young girls, right? Om Triambakam Yajambahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamevyavanandanam Mrityor Mukhyamamrita. Om Triambakam Yajambahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamevyavanandanam Mrityor Mukhyamamrita. Om. And so it's a very nice mantra. It's not like Gayatri mantra. There's different ways to do mantras. It's a good time to talk about this. So Gayatri mantra, I didn't list it here. I should, or maybe it is here. Yeah, it is. But Gayatri mantra is also for the sun. Now, Gayatri is an interesting mantra because they call it the most sacred, secret, powerful mantra in the world. They say it's got the power of, well, what a nuclear weapon has. The Gayatri has this kind of power. And so, well, like a nuclear weapon, you shouldn't unleash this mantra on the world. And so they say Gayatri mantra should be said quietly inside yourself. Now there's different versions of that as well, right? Because when we say something, it's like, well, where's the line? What exactly do you mean? And so with the Gayatri mantra and some of these other mantras, it can be I don't know if you can hear that, but it can be at this kind of volume where someone sitting beside you might hear you, kind of thing, right? Because sometimes it's very nice to say, especially when we're just learning mantras, it's very nice to say it out loud, and then you feel that whole vibration of the mantra in your whole body, right? Om Vaswaha. And you feel that in the chest, and you feel that in the body. I just feel the whole mantra. Now, I've given a version here. I think Dana's probably heard of Sanjay Rath. Sanjay Rath, if you're really interested in mantra, Sanjay Rath has this book, Astrological Remedies. It's basically a book of mantra. Now, this was his version of the Gayatri. He did it with the breathing. We can do any mantra with breathing. Just figure it out on your own is how I would say. But he did this mantra, and so they actually added an extra line, the Bhurvasvaha, for the exhale. But of course, if you're going to do it the breathing, then you are doing it like just in your mind. I think I saw Dana practicing there, but that's something, again, you can practice that on your own. Like this. Now, again, these are all Maha mantras. These are great mantras. You're going to follow something like Gayatri. Savitur is the god that the Gayatri is chanted to. That's what connects it to the sun. Savitur is an Aditya. And there's many. If you're interested in sun mantras, maybe I'm just going to do this anyways. I'm going to send out my songbook. I don't know if I've maybe sent it to one of you before. Yeah, okay, we got one. So I'll send out the songbook.
No, but I want it.
Oh, okay. Good you said, because I wouldn't have sent it. But it's got it's a whole bunch of mantras. And we can go through that someday too if you want. It'd be like it's my arty book, really. And so I've got the sun mantras for every direction, and then you've got the 12 Aditya suns that you do for it. There's a lot of sun mantras.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I'm not super familiar with mantras, like they really interest me, but I'm just kind of learning. Is there any like importance on the melody at all, or is it just mostly saying the words and how it feels like coming to you?
I missed the key word in there. You said that there no importance on what?
like, is there any should there be any focus on the proper melody to learn as well as the words, or can you just kind of make it up and just kind of, you know, feel it?
No, actually, good question. Now you're a musician, so anyways, you got study to do now. Um, Gayatri is actually, it's a meter. And so there are certain meters that the mantras are meant to be chanted in. So Gayatri is a meter. There's like, and this is an area I haven't studied much, but if you're into music, it's nice to get to know the meters and get to know that kind of rhythm that these mantras get chanted.
Right.
Now, on the other hand, no, it's not. What I think is more important, and especially from the Western context, it's like, okay, I say I teach you a mantra and I teach you Om Trayambakam Yajambahe Sugandham, and I teach it to you this way. And so that's how you learn. Maybe you go on YouTube and you find some other and you think, oh, I like the way this guy chants it. And so you listen to that and you learn that melody. But mostly if you're doing mantra, eventually what's going to happen is you're going to make it your own mantra.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I really like the way I've been doing my arti now is I do a whole bunch of mantras. I'm doing just this whole strings of mantras. And then sometimes I stop at one and I do that for a while. But what I've really noticed is my mood. It's like when you do meditation, it's like you're checking in and you get to know how you're feeling and you get to know what you get a sense of what your day is going to be like. You get to know what's inside of yourself. And I find this with the mantras because some days I sing it like that, and some days I sing it like that, and some days I skip that one and I do that one, and some days I sit at that one for a while. So there's a lot of different factors, but I think essentially make it your own. Now, I was given a mantra when I first started to learn Vedic astrology. He gave me a planetary mantra. And that's basically what he said. He said, practice this mantra and make it your own. And this is the most beautiful mantra for me now. It's been almost 15 years I've been practicing the same mantra. And it's beautiful. Like it's mantra, I have to remember to pull it out, but I can pull this mantra out in almost any kind of situation. And it just brings me to such this central, just such connection. It's really quite incredible. And so that's really what the personal mantra is for. You can make a Maha mantra into a personal mantra, but the personal mantra is something that you can pull out at any time and place, and you can use it for anything. I know, bold words, very powerful mantra. And well, I remember when I was told that, I thought, what does that even mean? And I'm not sure I can explain it, but it's true. I understand how that works now. It's just you just connect through your personal mantra. In a sense, it helps you if a lot of what we're doing in this course is learning how to identify these different sort of personal identifications of who are you. Well, you are your mantra. You are the repeating the samskaras in the mind, the vitris, the cycles of thoughts in your mind. You're your intelligence. Mantra is very much connected with your intelligence, with the illumination of the world is your intelligence. The sun illuminates everything, right? Not like the eyes, just what you see. It's the sun that's illuminating all of your senses and illuminating the world. And that gets connected to the mantra. So when I start to do my personal mantra, I'll do Om Trayambakam Yajambahe. It's like I rip that off 3 or 4 times and I'm Shiva, man. Like, don't mess with me after that. Like, I have no more fear. It's gone. Right? Like, and so it's these things become very powerful that way. And the mantra is just, it connects you to that, like I am energy, whatever energy that mantra belongs with. Like I am energy. I am, right? It's a Jupiter mantra. I am the guru. I am the light that shines. I am the protector of all. Whatever mantras. But here we get these kind of Maha mantras. I am Shiva. I am Hari Ram. I am Hari Krishna. Now, I'm sure you've all heard the Hari Ram, Hari Krishna. This is beautiful. This is lovely. It's like, in some sense, it's connected with the, well, you know, the ISKCON temples, right? And probably every major city in the world, you get ISKCON going through the streets. Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. They're singing and dancing, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Now, astrologically, Ram is the sun and Krishna is the moon. And so, in a sense, this makes it one of the like really great Maha mantras because it's kind of balances the sun and the moon. It balances the two main primordial energies that make you who you are, right? That mantra, that intelligence illuminating the world, and that emotional, that feeling, that passive, that absorbing the world. Interesting thing about moon and I've really connected a lot more of this through my study on the nakshatras. I think next week that starts, right? Yeah. And I think both of you are coming for that as well. So the moon is interesting because it's the culture the person comes from. And that's we absorb all of that culture. And in a way that becomes a very strong part of who you are. And so the sun and the moon are really, really important components of that. And so you are Ram, the one with the authority, the one who organizes and seeks justice in this world. And you are Krishna. You are the one who is comfortable in the disorder, the one who started the whole war of the Mahabharata and ensued chaos everywhere. So you are Ram, you are order, and you are chaos. Krishna as well. And so the Hari Ram is kind of a celebration of this. I am order, I am chaos, I am order, I am chaos, right? And you're kind of, you know, on that kind of puppet string, kind of dancing every which way between order and chaos. Now, order and chaos are interesting topics. And this has a lot to do with the whole Shiva Shakti thing, the whole nature and nurture, this whole duality thing. And now, oh, I skipped ahead to sun. Anyway, so, so it's like you are 100% order and you are 100% chaos. And these two things are mutually exclusive. It's like Shiva and Shakti. In some sense, they're mutually exclusive. It's like men and women. In some sense, we can't stand each other, right? We're just like, oh, girls, I don't get them. And girls are, oh, guys, oh, God, right? But we have this, we're like a magnet still. We come together. And it's like what we are inside. And the reason we come together like that is because we are this polarity, this inner sort of energy cell that's both masculine and feminine. And so that creates this energy, same as electromagnetic energy, actually. It creates a certain magnetic field around you and these bodies and this certain sort of polarity that it attracts. Anyways, it's like a magnetic, it's like when you get an electric field, you automatically get a magnetic field. And so that magnetic field will attract things and repel things from you. And again, that has a lot to do with Venus as well. That polarity, that sense of duality that we're working with. So I'm going to come up the tattvas now. Right, because I dealt with the 25 lower tattvas. And then I got confused somewhere and I skipped ahead to the sun to the next chapter. Anyways, we'll deal with that. It was fun. I guess I just needed us to sing some mantras. So we'll come up a stage. Well, we'll look at it this way. So we looked at the Atma Tattvas below. And then above, I talked about these Vidya Tattvas. And above that, I talked about these Shiva Tattvas. I think I kind of summed them up here.
Is there a page that I'm not seeing? Like, is there a note page or something that I should be seeing that I'm not seeing? Ah, okay. Where is it?
What space are we?
If
I
if you have like an iPad or something that you can touch where it says switch to gallery view on the left, the thing is like you can see or the page or the people.
yes. Oh my God. Okay, wait. I'm
Okay.
not super
That's
familiar.
why I have it on my phone too, just so I can see both things.
I'm on a computer, so wait, I did it for a second, but now it's okay, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, anyway, so I just learned something. So, oh, there we go. So we've got these three levels, and I called them, I made this up myself. And that's one of the things I'm going to warn you about in this whole class, okay? Because I've studied a lot of the classical cosmetic philosophies and I've studied all this stuff, but I have a little bit my own way sometimes of understanding it. And so these sort of three levels of tattva, we can think of the Shiva, Shakti, and Ganesha tattvas. And so it's also this level of mind, body, and spirit. And now there's going to be a lot of confusion because everything on the first 25 tattvas, we can get mind, body, spirit. We can break that up into those three kind of areas. But then we can look at the body as a broader thing of all of this existent body is the mind, body, spirit. So it's all 25 of those. But then there's this higher level of mind, in a sense, this Maya, that's very much connected to the mental energies, very much connected with the kind of inner instrument of energies. And so in another sense, we can think of this as the mind. We can think of this is Maya Devi. This is the great goddess at the level of Maya. Maya is everything. Now, if we look at what the Orthodox philosophical people, Vedanta and Buddhism and all the Orthodox people, they say that, well, there's only God, there's only the Brahman, there's only the spirit. And beyond this limited reality, that's the only true reality, is the Brahman. And then there's this Maya that distracts us from realizing the Brahman. And so this Maya, it's illusion. We can't recognize the Brahman. We can't realize that we're Shiva, for example, because Maya is there confusing us, giving us this limited reality instead of the full potential of I am Shiva. And so Orthodox philosophies treat this Maya like it's a really bad thing. And while it's confusion. It keeps us a little bit from recognizing the ultimate reality. But Tantra then said, well, you can actually use this Maya to realize Shiva. And so Maya then becomes, in a sense, this is the whole area where magic happens. There's some, what the heck's his name? I want to say Elias Canetti. I'm probably completely wrong. Was it his book called Ka? Maybe. Yes. I don't know. There's a really great book on Indian philosophy called Ka. And he translates Maya as magic. And rather than illusion, mostly we just say, oh, it's illusion. It's confusing you. It's no good. But this whole world is Maya. Everything that you can see is Maya. Every bit of light, every flicker of sound, everything is Maya. We can't see the Brahman. We can't see the spirit. Right? You can challenge any spiritual guru, the highest master. Show me an example of spirit. They'll be like, well, it's everywhere. Right? You can't see it. And so it's like, well, in some sense, okay, forget about that. We can't work with that because we don't know how to connect to it. And so we connect to it through the Maya. We connect to it through this nature, through this incredibly beautiful nature that's around us, through the people, the trees, and we connect by connecting with that. And so that's this Maya. So the Maya, in some senses, now, in some senses, the Maya are the chakras. This is the junction point between ultimate spiritual conscious energy and this reality that we're living in. And so you've got this like full power coming from God. And God enters this kind of kala, this sheath, this kind of veil of kala, say, kind of comes between that full powered God in the center and limits that. Now he's got this God, but his power is limited. His vidya, his knowledge is limited. His sense of fullness and satisfaction is limited. His sense of, time and change and everything's moving. And all of that gets limited. And this experience is cause and effect. And so that's the experience we have, is this limited experience. Now, your limits to power are different than my limits to power. Your limits to knowledge are different than mine in a certain sense, right? Because this power has come in and it's been veiled in different ways. It's like a different arrangement of shaktis. It's like we all have a Muladhara chakra. That's the same for everyone. That's a universal truth, you could say. But the arrangement and how that Shakti is powered is different for each of us. And so it's like, well, when you look on this earthly side of Maya, it's like, well, it's different. My power and your power are different. But if we look up on the godly side of Maya, you could say, then, well, we all have power. And that's kind of the same for all of us. So in a way, these are like the sheaths that limit the power. And so this is really that murky area where magic can happen, where, well, if we're talking in the realm of healing, as energy healers, as tantric healers, as, I don't know what we call ourselves, healers, energy workers, this is the level of Maya we're working on. And what the scientific community calls our kind of healing, a lot of times they call it placebo effect, actually. And placebo effect is this, it's when the doctor does something that has no physiological reason to work, but it works, it has an effect. And they get some kind of benefits from sugar pills, for example. And so that's really the level we're working on, is the placebo effect. And we're trying to, in a sense, implement the placebo effect in our lives as healers, we're trying to implement the placebo effect in a somewhat systematic way, right? And so we get some effect, we get some healing, and we change people's lives, and they're like, well, I don't know what they did. I don't know. They did this and they told me that. And I don't know. told him to do this thing, and good. So in a sense, we're trying to we're trying to connect to. Oh, someone sent me a. Oh, there we go. Rabbi. Oh, okay, okay. There we go. So I don't know, Andrian, can you see the chat as well, or can I only see that?
I don't know. I'm terrible with Zoom. I don't understand anything, but I can hear you
Okay.
and I can see the little page, but I don't know.
Anyways, the author
I
of
think
that-
we're all terrible here with
Yeah.
technology. But I think I wrote the chat for everyone, but you have to click it.
Yeah.
It was just the name of the book if you wanted, Andrea,
Oh, cool. Thank
that
you.
he said.
I'll probably figure it out. But either way, I think you sent me that document by WhatsApp the other day. Could it be possible?
Then what, sorry?
I think you sent me that document by WhatsApp the other day, right?
Yeah, well, I sent you the document I'm looking at. Yeah, I sent you the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, but yeah, no, anyways, it's fine. Yeah. Thank you.
Anyways,
But I can
the author was of that book, because it's a great book. The author was Roberto Calasso. Probably pronounced that wrong, but much better than what I said before. Sorry.
thank you.
Power of Maya, right? Is always shifting and changing. So, so we learned to roll with the Maya. We learned to roll with these, but we're learning to work on the level of magic. And the level of magic works on a very individual level. It's like your magic is going to be different from my magic. And there's different ways we set this up. So I'm staying down on Laguna Titlan, and there's a little village nearby, San Marcos, and it's a very new age village. And you can say just about everybody there is doing magic, working some kind of magic. But these are the magicians. They're all they're dressed for magic. They look like magicians in a way. And they're doing some with their hands, and they're doing some kind of magic. And a lot of people working energy work, they're working on this level. And this works. It's this atmosphere. You make this atmosphere of magic. You bring them into this, again, if it's that Venusian, and as you can say, a lot of that really Venus magic they're working with there, that Venusian magic, they bring them into this atmosphere where everything's a little bit psychedelic and strange, and oh, I don't understand what's going to happen. What are they doing? I don't get it. In a way, we want to bring our clients to that place, because that's where now they're not thinking anymore. It's like we want to chop their head off, essentially, is what we want to do. And this is quite brutal and gruesome sort of image, but this is Kali wearing all the heads. This is Shiva chopping off Bhairava, chopping off the heads. This is the magician preparing the ground to make magic. And so when we get people in a little bit and they don't quite understand, when they can't use their mind anymore, we it's like, that's where like, haha, now I gotcha, right? It's like, you got them right where you want them. They don't understand anything. They can't. So they're, in a way, they're open, right? They don't understand, but they're there in front of you, letting you do whatever strange thing you might be doing with them. And so they're open to magic once they don't fully understand. And so that's good. We want our clients to not fully understand to a certain degree, because, well, we probably don't fully understand. And so if we're honest with ourselves and honest with our clients, it's like, well, sorry, abracadabra, right? but well, if you empower abracadabra, well, that can work for you too, right? So what technique that you empower, that can work, and that's going to work. And especially for people who come and they're open and they don't understand, but they have faith. And that faith is again, it's where the magic is going to happen is where people have to take some kind of leap from this reality that the common people say, well, this is reality and that's it. You need them to just take a little step off that ledge. And as soon as you can bring them off that ledge, then you've got them where you can kind of heal them, where you can work some magic. Right. And that's what we're trying to work with.
So how can you, I guess there's no way to help somebody heal who doesn't want to take that leap of faith, right? Like that's the hardest thing to me. It's like, oh, all the people that really need healing, most of the time they don't believe in anything, or like they lost all that leap of faith. So like how, sorry for all the noise.
No, I can't
Oh my
hear.
God. Anyway,
Yeah, well, this is it. We can't heal anybody that doesn't have healing inside of them. And so we're kind of directing them to that source of their own power. We're trying to empower them to heal and to, I guess, from our perspective, to use magic to heal, not to just use any old method. Go from being sick to healthy, make the jump, make the leap. And so a lot of that is like, we're kind of trying to plant seeds in our clients, right? And how you do that and what's appropriate, well, it depends on you and your relationship with your client. And so you're trying to plant seeds of change, of growth, and these kinds of things. Like mostly I do astrology with people. And so I think, like a lot of people think, oh, okay, well, astrology, they give me some predictions and they tell me a few things about myself, and what's the big deal? But I find it's actually very potent magic in the West, because Western people, they don't understand it. And what I'm really trying to do at some point in that astrology reading, make them say, wow. If I can make that client say, wow, and they don't understand, all of a sudden it's like you've given them something that just blows their mind. That's the magic. That's going to be the healing. That's the seed that I've planted, right? And what that becomes, it can become anything. The client who messages me a month down the line and goes, you said this. I know that seed is growing. They've been nurturing it for a month now, right? And it's growing, and now we're ready to nurture a garden together somehow. And so that's a lot of what we're doing. We can't heal people that don't have it inside themselves. This is really important. It gets kind of skimmed over, a lot of scriptures. I think the scripture is Sage Parashara. It's the scripture for Vedic astrology, basically. And all these scriptures, they have a section, beginning of the scripture, and they always say the right student, and the qualities for the student and the qualities for the teacher. And so these things always get, but they basically say people who aren't ready to hear your wisdom, forget about them. Don't try to teach, right, tamasic people who aren't willing to connect. Don't try to teach people who are ignorant and happy in their ignorance. You can be an example around these kinds of people, and maybe then they'll come to you, right? But don't try to teach people who aren't ready to hear your message. Basically, try to teach people who are ready, who are open to what you have to say. And those are the people who are, well, you're going to be able to have some kind of an effect on them, right? And so Heraclitus, he's an old Western astrologer, healer, father of Western modern medicine. That's who he is. So he once said that every doctor should be an astrologer. But he said a little bit more after that. Said the reason every doctor should be an astrologer is so that they only focus their attention on the clients who are going to get better. And they don't waste their time on clients who aren't going to get better. And so the same goes for all of us. Don't waste your time on people who aren't going to get better. Now, this is tricky sometimes a little bit because some of us want to do, we want to do a certain amount of work for free for people. We want to offer our services to the masses. Now, so then it gets tricky, right? You open up to the masses, you get people coming to you who actually, they just want to waste your time. They just want to suck your energy and they don't want to do anything, right? And that's, well, when you're offering a free service, that's a lot of people will jump on that. And so you want to still try to get clients offering a free service that gets sincere clients, that gets sincere people. And again, the way we try to do that can be a little bit different. And it depends what your particular healing version is. If you're just offering kind of a one-time thing, it gets a little bit more difficult. But sometimes you can use offering a one-time thing to weed out the people. And then you find one or two, right? You get 10 people come to you and one or two are really sincere and they can really you can really work with them. Right? So, okay, you offer this free thing, you get 8 people waste your time for one day, and then you get 2 people that are good. You can work with them. You can offer them for free or for discount or for whatever, good vibes or whatever it is we do our work for. But the important thing is we should try to weed out, right? And so that, okay, we're going to waste some of our time, but we want to bring that to a minimum because, well, we're energy workers. Time is energy. Time is money. Time is energy is energy, right? And so we don't want to be just like putting out energy out everywhere. We want to kind of conserve our energy and use it at the right time and place that's appropriate. So a lot of that then is through Maya. And connecting to our, well, this is what a lot of yoga is as well. It's connecting with your limitations. It's going off, it's pushing yourself to your limit so that you know what your limit of, well, be familiar with your limits of power, right? And then we want to kind of push out those limits a little bit, right? Be aware of your limits of knowledge, expand those limits, right? Your limits of fullness is interesting. Fullness is that feeling of satisfaction. I'm full and I'm complete and I don't need anything. And so that's limited. And so here we are, we feel like we need something, right? You guys feel like you need some knowledge and I feel like I need some money. And so we're here and we're meeting and we're making this energy exchange, right? Because we felt some sense of lack inside of ourselves. And so we're trying to fill that. And so that's raga, fullness. And then kala is this sense of time and change. And so that's really, we live in this world of time and change and everything's shifting and everything's not complete. And so, well, if we think of the feeling of fullness, it's like we get that. We've all had that at some point in our lives. We've all had a feeling of fullness. And, oh, it's great when you have it, right? Like you're full, I'm good. There's nothing in this world I need. It's like, meh. And that's a kind of enlightenment when we feel that. It's the same even of knowledge. Like we get these moments with knowledge where we're like, yeah, I understand everything. I get it. All of it makes so much sense, right? You become full of knowledge, you could say, where you don't feel any limited or any lack in your knowledge. It's just like, wow, I get it all. And same with power occasionally, right? You feel like, wow, I can do anything. I am so powerful. And again, we're in this kala, this limited time and space. And so that feeling of being full of power is limited. And that feeling of all these godly feelings, we feel them, we touch them, we taste them, we get very close to this godliness of omnipotence, right? But it fades again. And that's that kala, that bringing it and taking it away. And there's always changing, and there's always a cycle, and there's always something new. And it's like, in some sense, life just never ever stops coming at us. And that's this kala. And then we get this cause and effect, necessity. Now, this is interesting. So this is basically karma. And well, I dealt with the karmas up above. Did I? I think I did. Oh yeah, a little bit here. I think I'm going to deal with the karmas and the Maya a little bit more in a later chapter, but we get these Mayas, and now there's Mala, Karma Mala, Maya Mala, Anava Mala. And so these are the Malas, and these aren't elements. These aren't elements. These are kind of impurities in the system. And Anavana Maya, a lot of these are kind of like sorry, Cat's getting more friendly with me than we're not that good of friends, we're just kind of acquaintances. So where is he? Down here somewhere? Anyways. So anyways, you get these malas. In some sense, Anava Mala is like original sin. Right? And that's well, in another perspective, like if we think of sin in the Indian system, they don't really have this, not quite the same concept as the West, but sin in the Indian system is basically everything that keeps you from not knowing yourself is a sin, basically. And so we're all sullied with that original sin, right? That's kind of what Maya is, in a sense. It's all those things that are keeping us from ourselves. And so then that's where you get this very, like in a sense, to the Orthodox people, Maya and all this sense of individuality, this is all sin in a way. It's all evil. It's all kind of devil's work stuff. It's all like, all that Maya is keeping you from knowing who you really are. It's like, that's the devil. And so then when we get talking in more modern terms, we think of us like patriarchal religions that reject the devil kind of thing. Well, that's basically all Orthodox religions, because they're rejecting all of this Maya and all of these, they're rejecting this world, basically, because, well, Maya is this whole world, and so the devil then becomes this whole world of earth that we live in. And so, well, that original sin is that sense of duality, that sense of being separate. And in a way, it's like, well, the devil's not bad. It's not bad. It's just the way life is, but life can be much more than all of that, right? When you don't feel that sense of separation, when you identify more with these higher tattvams of I am Shiva, rather than, oh, I am this thing I'm seeing, or I'm my anger, or I am my joy, right? It's like, I am all of this. I'm the great Lord of all of this. And so your experience is kind of a better experience, you could say, when you identify with that. But not that there's anything wrong with identifying with I am mad, because, well, no, right now you're mad. And so, well, okay, be mad. Nothing really wrong with that. Like, It's just a lower sense of identification, and well, you can do better than that. um, I guess. And so it gets kind of confusing when we talk about these higher spiritual tattvams and these lower earthly tattvams. The lower earthly tattvam being the feminine goddesses and the feminine energies and the earth and that sense of separation. And well, it's all beautiful. And I love this Maya around me, and she gives me everything I have. And well, God help me if I can give everything I have back to Maya. And we'll talk about the give and take of that whole system. I think in the moon section is when we talk about that, but so in a couple sections, and so Maya is giving me everything I have, and so I'm giving everything to Maya, and Maya is just my whole world. And well, sometimes my whole world sucks, man. It's like sometimes it just really sucks. Really does. And that's just the way things are, and it's not bad and it's not wrong, and it's not like, oh well, you should be happy. No, it's like, well, that's how it is. and and well, chances are if you fight against it and go, oh, why am I not happy? I should be happy, I should be more happy, and oh, I'm not happy. Well, chances are that's going to be a barrier to your happiness. Right? Just relax and be a little bit grouchy and be mad, and okay, life sucks. Sit in it for a while. Experience that. Right? Maya and God want you to experience a little bit of a shitty time right now, because, well, maybe that will inspire you. Right? And it's quite often the energy is always moving from Shiva Tattva down to the earth and back to Shiva Tattva and down to the earth. And our life is moving like that as well. It's a wave. It's not a constant. And so we have a wonderful, wonderful day, and then we have something sucks, and then we have a wonderful day again. And we get to experience the full range of reality. We get to experience everything. And that's a Devi experience, a Maya experience. It's the goddess just showing us all her different faces. And well, even wrathful, vengeful Kali is beautiful. She's exquisite, like emerald she's described, right? This is perfect, exquisite creature. And so that's Maya Devi, and that's the goddess. And so, well, as mystics, we worship Shiva. So Shiva is he's kind of the god of the dead. Sorry, big things, funny things jumping out the forest at me. It's a little lizard, but it was like, oh. So oh wow, the lizard totally took my mind away from me. And so we're identifying over the whole course and the whole range of tattvas. And really, I would say that's probably like the main practice. You can start practicing one of the mantras. Andrian, if you want to start practicing a new mantra, we can have a little discussion. Which one? I think Om Namah Shivaya or Trayambaka mantra would probably be perfect for you. But anyways, I think the main practice, and I think it's the main practice I teach, and the main practice of this whole thing, is the way of the tattvam. And so what you're doing is you start to identify yourself with start with this. I am Mercury. I am this earth. I am this sense of smell. I am this waste product that's at the end of the line. Right? I am right? I am Mercury. I am this duality. I am this dual being, right? And then you go, I am Venus. I am my sense of taste, right? I have my sense of reproduction and remaking things new again, right? I am the water element. I am this emotional, squishy thing. I am a Mars, right? I am the fire. And so you want to go through each and every one of those tattva. And I am this, I am Saturn, on my sense of touch, on my ability to touch, reach out and touch this world. I am my nervous system. I am this energy coursing through the body. And so we want to, and you can break that down even more. Just I am that earth element and go into that. I am my sense of smell. Smell that, burn some incense and smell that incense. And I am that sense of smell, right? A lot of times the tantric methods are very extreme, right? So you overpower yourself with a sense of smell, right? For a little while, so that you really are fully identified with that. I am that, right? You really overstimulate your sense of sight and vision. I am what I see. But when you're doing this, be aware that you are not the passive, you're not a passive instrument. You're an active instrument. You can reach out and see what you want to see. So even say you're walking down the street, it's a bit of a new area for yourself. You're coming to a corner. Turn that corner, stop. What do you see first? What are the first things that make your impression on you? Right? There's a gazillion things in front of you can see and look at. 1, 2, 3 of these things you'll see right now. What does that tell you about yourself? What does that tell you about who you are? Both, and we need to do this all the time, both as a person generally, and who are you as a right now at this time and space. We always want to kind of assess ourselves on these two levels, right? Because there's something, you're generally someone, you were born and you're going to die, and there's something inside that's unchanging, no matter how much that outside surface changes. And so who are you as this unchanging soul from birth to death, right? Who are you as a greater spirit that's never born and never died? But who are you at this moment of time? And so there's very different sort of levels of who am I? That's where it all starts. That's where we start with our clients. They come to us and they're like, I don't understand. I'm confused. Who am I? Right? So we want to guide them to this process of different understanding themselves at different levels of being. So ultimately then, and I don't talk a lot about these highest tattvas, these Shiva tattvas, because, well, who the hell am I to talk about Shiva, right? um, it's a great spirit energy, and as you can see, it's like Shiva and Shakti energies. Now, I've added this funky little Shiva Nataraja. Actually, the reason I added that was more because of the triangles than because of the Shiva. And so it's this triangle, the one pointing up and the one pointing down. I can't remember if I wrote about it. Maybe I did. And so that's the masculine and the feminine energies coming together. And so this is happening way up on this level of energy that's beyond Maya even, right? Because the Devi is just, she's coming and she's putting some masks on once you get down to Maya. She's showing us all these faces, but there's a great goddess Devi who's beyond all of that Maya. And that's usually the triangle pointing downward is kind of the symbol of the Devi. And now there's the 3 points of that Devi, or the 3 main goddesses. Kali, Saraswati, and I didn't by myself. Who's the other one I say a prayer to every single morning?
Lakshmi.
Lakshmi, thank you, Dana. um, my connection with wealth isn't that good, so maybe that's why I left Lakshmi out. Anyways, so it's these three energies, but it's also these three powers of Shakti, the kind of the will, the knowledge, and the action. And these are very, very important as well. It's 11 o'clock now, but I'll just go a couple more minutes here. And so if you really have to run, I understand you can go. But anyways, it won't take much longer. And so then you get these three main energies, and those are really like, whenever anything comes into this world, it starts off, there's some will. Somewhere in this universe, inside ourselves, we get this will. Kind of like a desire in a sense. And then we have to get some knowledge in order to bring something. We have to kind of learn to put things together and put the pieces together. And so then we acquire some knowledge. And then we're able to take action. I know how to do that. I can make that. Let's go for it. And so it's this kind of level, the will, the knowledge, and the action is kind of also this level of kind of body, mind, and spirit. Or, well, the other way, I guess I should have said it, but it's this body, mind, and spirit, or it's this sattvic, tamas, rajas, or it's just like any of the trinal relationships in a sense, are these relationships of going from very subtle to very gross. And so that's the downward triangle. The upward triangle denotes Shiva and the masculine energies. To rise, it's like the triangle generally is the symbol for fire because it points upwards. I want to say the symbol for water can be the downward triangle because it's pointing downward and water, but maybe I'm making that up. But it works, so let's go with it. So then there's the triangle pointing upwards, and that's the Shiva tattvas. And so that's the Satchitananda are the three kind of Shiva energies, the truth, the consciousness, and the bliss. And so when you get truth, consciousness, and bliss, and they combine with some will, knowledge, and action, then you get something, well, you get a miracle, right? Because masculine and feminine have just combined to become one. And so you get this miracle of life, basically. And so that's like Shiva and Shakti when they combine, that masculine and feminine combine, but they're combining these certain energies. And we'll talk about these a little bit more, especially the like will, knowledge, and action. That's kind of a very important trine when we think of Tantra. And then also Shiva's 5 functions. He's given all the functions of the universe at this level, to create, to maintain, and to destroy, but he also reveals and conceals things. And so, well, if you are Shiva, these are your 5 functions, right? And if you are Shakti, these are your 5 powers. And so if you combine, if you are a human being, which means you're Shiva and Shakti combined, that means you've got 5 functions and 5 powers. And so really, you might want to spend some time meditating on these. I am knowledge, I am Ishvara, I am these higher tattvas, higher Shaktis. And so the way of the tattva is to learn to identify with all that. So I think we'll leave it at that. I'll say namaste and we'll kind of stop recording. If any of you guys have any questions on the side, you can, I've got some, I'm pretty sure I have time, but I'll look. But I'm pretty sure I've got some time and we can answer those. So thank you very much for coming to this today. And it's been a pleasure. And Mahadev.
Thank you.
Namah Shivaya.
Thank you so much, Mahadev.
Indeed. And
I had some questions, but I forgot.
okay.
So if anything pops up, I'll ask you. But I'm interested in this personal mantra thing. I remember I've practiced the Om Namah Shivaya quite a bit. And it's always very nice. I guess one of my questions was